And welcome in, everybody, to the Last Row Podcast, a fan's perspective on sports. It's Brian here inside the ARM Media Solutions Studios on this Sunday, March the 1st, 2026. Hope you are happy and healthy wherever it is you may be. I want to first and foremost thank our sponsors, I Know a Guy Remodeling. We'll hear from them here in just a little bit. A friendly reminder that you can join us and follow us through our website, www.lastrowpodcast.com. You can also follow us on Twitter or X at Last Row Podcast. You can also find us on TikTok Live, where we are streaming each and every night live and in living color, coast to coast, sea to shining sea, and around the world. You can find us there at TikTok, at last.row.podcast. You can also find us on YouTube Live at Last Row Podcast. Lots to get to. Took a night off last night just to recharge the batteries and spend some time with family and all that fun stuff that goes along with it. And glad to have all of you with us here tonight. Few things to discuss and to talk about, and want to get into everything here as much as we can, including the Combine that was held here over the weekend. Lots of news and notes from the Combine, including potential trade targets, potential trade value, potential moves that could be made. Overall, I will say this much. I was very impressed overall with the Combine from what I saw. And realistically, within the Combine, you look for big name players, and you look for bigger name players in terms of the the programs in which they come from, things like that. So you expect your SEC guys to to do well, or you hope they do at least. You hope that they have the opportunity to showcase what they can do, so on and so forth. So, with that being said, the fact is that the quarterbacks, minus Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, Diego Pavia, they all looked great. They all, in my opinion, they all did very, very well. Okay? They all had really nice combines, for lack of a better term. They were throwing the ball well. They were slinging it around. I was really impressed with Ty Simpson from Alabama. Now, granted, he didn't have a rush in his face, things like that. But I was impressed with that, and I think that overall will help him. Diego Pavia, look, for as much as he talks and as much as he is vilified, if you will, for or because of his talking that he likes to do, I will say this much. He was very impressive. And he was absolutely fantastic in terms of what he's able to do. And I feel like from a quarterbacking standpoint, he's a little small, but I think he makes up for that with his arm strength. And I was very impressed by him, especially on the deep throws. The deep throws, he really excelled. And it felt like he needed a couple, he needed a few throws just to kind of get his feet wet and just kind of, work out the cobwebs kind of thing. And then all of a sudden he was dialed in. Same with Simpson. I felt like Simpson was really, really good. Linebackers, defensive backs stole the show, I felt like. I felt like those guys really had a great combine, top to bottom. Running backs, Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, I believe, will surprise some people at how high he will go in the draft. He not only showcased his speed, his agility, but then he stayed out. And Stacey Dales, great reporter with the NFL Network, former Oklahoma Sooner basketball player, former WNBA player as well, one of the nicest human beings on the face of the earth. Absolute legend in basketball and as well in reporting on the NFL, and works for the NFL Network and does a great job. She happened to ask him, look, you had the opportunity to come back out or to stay off, off to the sidelines, and you chose to come back out and work. Why? And Jeremiah Love's answer was simple. I want to show my versatility. I want to show that I am able to not only be a great running back, but I can catch the ball as well. I'm going to be a great receiver in this league. And he understands. He knows that the more versatility you show here, the better off you're going to be. And I look for him absolutely to have an opportunity to be drafted by somebody like Kansas City. He could go super early in the draft, too. I don't necessarily know if he makes it to Kansas City. But I was very impressed by him, just as he was able to, realistically, he had a great season at Notre Dame. He was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy, all of that. And for as much as I am a Notre Dame homer, selfishly, I wanted Jeremiah Love to come back one more year. But I understand the opportunity that he has, and he is absolutely going to go very high in this draft. And when he does, to the team that he does, I believe that he will make them an instantly better team. Quarterbacks, Pavia, Simpson, I think it's going to take a little time for them, especially depending on where they land in the draft and who they go to. Depending on if they go to a team that's quarterback friendly or if they go somewhere else that's not so much quarterback friendly, maybe with a defensive-minded head coach. All of the talk seems to be that Mendoza's going 1 to the Las Vegas Raiders, which absolutely makes sense. There's no question about that. Unless they get involved in trade talk with somebody like Baltimore or somebody like, Arizona, somebody that needs and that has a quarterback that they would be willing to move. I don't believe, and again, this is just me speculating here, I don't believe that there is going to be a team that moves up to get him. I just don't. I think Mendoza's going 1. But I feel that if there's a team that could make an offer to Vegas, I think they would listen. Somebody like Baltimore, and again, that goes back to the report by Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk, saying that he, Baltimore is fed up with Lamar and fed up with the antics of Lamar. And if that's the case, if somebody like Vegas said, "Hey, Baltimore, what's your asking price?" and Baltimore said, "Well, we'll give you Lamar Jackson for the number 1 pick." I think Vegas takes it. I think Vegas would take it. And seeing Lamar Jackson in the Clint Kubiak offense with Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers and, the weapons that they could bring, that would be very scary. Now, we talked here just a few minutes ago about Ty Simpson from Alabama. And he made it known. He absolutely made it known that he would love to play for Cleveland's head coach, Todd Monken. Now, if I'm the Browns, I actually seriously might consider that, because let's think about this for a minute. Who do you have on your roster that is going to be better, potentially, than a guy that played in the SEC, that showed that he can play in big games for Alabama, and that realistically has the arm that can make all the throws? I'm sorry, Deshaun Watson's not that guy anymore, number one. Number 2, we all know Shador is not the guy. Number 3, we know Dillon Gabriel's not the guy. So do they really want to waste time finding out who's their best quarterback, or do they want to maybe make a move at quarterback and have somebody like a Ty Simpson come in? That's something to consider. It's something to think about. I don't believe that Cleveland will do that. But I will say this. It wouldn't shock me the way Cleveland has run. It wouldn't shock me how Cleveland has run. And I feel that if Cleveland does do something like that, it's going to be, for lack of a better term, it's because they don't believe in any of those quarterbacks. And quite honestly, I don't know if Todd Monken should. Let's just be honest here. I don't think Monken should. I feel, though, that there's an opportunity here for a couple teams to potentially move up. The New York Jets general manager, Darren Mogi, said today, we'll talk about trading up to 1. I don't think it's happening. But the fact that they're willing to entertain that, if you're a Jets fan, you absolutely want that. You want to be able to go up and get a potential franchise-altering player. I don't necessarily know if that's Fernando Mendoza. I think you have to get Mendoza in an offensive-friendly system. Fed fan, I'll never apply to be a member of the Browns. I don't want to take a test. Right, yeah. I don't want to have to pass an opening press conference either in that regard. Yeah, I don't want to have to take a personality test. I don't want to have to take a history test from the Browns. Look, I think there's going to be movement in the draft. And I think you're going to have guys that want to move back. Because let's be honest here. Teams that need offensive help, whether it's offensive lineman, running back, wide receiver, that are up near the front of the draft, I don't necessarily know if they're going to be willing to say at number 3, take a defensive edge if they need other players, if that makes sense. And so for them, I think it's going to be absolutely critical that if they want to move back, they find a dance partner. They've got to find a dance partner first and foremost. And if they do that, I don't know, maybe a team like the Chicago Bears that needs defensive help. Maybe the Bears get aggressive and move up. Maybe Green Bay gets aggressive and moves up. Maybe Kansas City, who's kind of sitting in that middle of the pack, maybe they get aggressive and move up. I mean, look, you look at the draft lineup and you look at the draft order, and let's call it what it is here. There are teams that are in the bottom half of the draft that normally aren't there, like Chicago. They're normally not in that spot. And with that, you absolutely have an opportunity here. I mean, you've got Raiders at 1, Jets at 2, Cardinals at 3. We know Arizona needs a quarterback. We know that. We know that the Jets need help defensively and offensively. We know Vegas, if they don't get a big trade with Baltimore, they're going to look at Mendoza, and they're more than likely going to take him. That would be the safe pick in that regard. But then at 5, you've got the Giants. You've got Cleveland at 6, Washington at 7. I mean, look, Washington we know is going to take they're going to take a defensive guy. We know that already. Kansas City's at 9. Cincinnati's at 10. I think at that point, you've got an opportunity here to have teams move up. I also think if you want to amass more picks, like if you're Cleveland, if you know that you're going to hold off on taking an offensive player and you can acquire more draft picks to move back, you absolutely do it. Do I think the Jets keep Breece Hall? I think they're going to tag him. I think they're going to franchise tag him. Yeah, Fed fan. And the fact, and I was just getting ready to bring it up, Fed. You're spot on here. The fact that Burrow and Mahomes each get a top 10 pick let's be honest here. Burrows needs offensive line help. He's got to get offensive. Look, if I'm Cincinnati right now, I'm thinking I've got to take the best offensive lineman possible. And if I don't, if I go defense first or if I go, running back first or whatever it might, that could be a spot where Jeremiah Love goes. Let's be honest here. Cincinnati needs a good running game. That would help Burrow out quite a bit. But if they go defense and Burrow doesn't get an offensive lineman to help, man, oh man, I'm telling you right here now, if I'm Joe Burrow, I'm really questioning what my future is then in Cincinnati. Because if he doesn't get offensive line help, I got news for you. He's not going to make it through another season. He's just not. And Zach Taylor being an offensive-minded head coach, look, I'll just shoot straight with you. I think he's on the hot seat. I think he's absolutely 100% on the hot seat because of the fact of how bad they have drafted with Burrow. They're wasting Burrow's best years here. They are absolutely wasting Joe Burrow's best years in Cincinnati. And I believe Burrow is getting tired of it. Let's just be honest here. I think Burrow is getting tired of it. Michael, does Denver get Sadiq at 30? I don't think he makes it there. I don't think he makes it to 30. You're talking the tight end out of Oregon, right? I don't believe he makes it there. I think he gets taken probably mid-first, to be honest with you. The AFC North is all in trouble, let's be honest. Yeah, look. I think the team, honestly, that I would look at, and it all depends on what they do at the quarterback position. Okay? I believe that Pittsburgh right now is probably in the best position, and the reason for that, if they get Aaron Rodgers back with Mike McCarthy as their head coach, you're talking a quarterback that knows that offense in and out. If it's an offensive head coach, he's quarterback friendly. Everywhere, I know he's good. I know Rodgers is cooked. But listen on this. That offense is, okay, I'm going to say something that might ruffle some feathers, and that's fine if it does. I don't care. Look what Mike McCarthy did for Dak Prescott. I don't know if we're ever going to say that Dak Prescott is as good as Aaron Rodgers has been, but I will say this much. Aaron Rodgers could still put up big numbers with McCarthy. He still could. Let's be honest. Aaron Rodgers could still have a good year. And the fact that McCarthy was able to do what McCarthy did with Dak Prescott, a fourth-round quarterback, look, that says quite a bit. And yes, he had CeeDee Lamb, I get it, and they drafted him. And yes, they had a good running game and a good offensive line for the most part. But Aaron Rodgers can still fling it. The problem wasn't Aaron Rodgers this season in Pittsburgh. The problem in Pittsburgh was the defense. The defense wasn't as good as Mike Tomlin needed it to be. And that's why Pittsburgh made the move. And again, I think that overall, I think Rodgers could still have a solid year with McCarthy. All the meanwhile working with Will Howard or whomever else they get as a backup quarterback, whether it's Tua Tagovailoa, whether it's Kyler Murray, whether it's, Malik Will, whoever they get. I don't care who it is. Whoever ends up in that offense with Mike McCarthy is going to succeed. Look, Mike McCarthy has won 60% of his NFL head coaching games. That's not bad, guys. And you absolutely fed your right on. Tomlin is better than Jeff Fisher at getting a game above 500 every year. Listen, Mike Tomlin's a good coach. I'm not saying that. The issue, though, is that in Pittsburgh this season, the defense wasn't as good as they needed to be. When you have Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, those guys, you have guys that are Pro Bowl caliber that need to get home. And the problem with TJ Watt, and I'm just going to say it, he's injury prone. He's too injury prone. He doesn't stay on the field enough. And I like TJ Watt, don't get me wrong, but he's not on the field enough. And they didn't have a playoff roster. They had some big name players, but they didn't have guys, good solid role players. They didn't. I mean, their tight end Pat Freiermuth has been in the league, 10 years? I mean, he's not a game-changing tight end. I mean, anymore, if you look at the game, you've got to have a great wide receiver or a solid wide receiver. You've got to have a tight end that can run down the middle and split the seams and get into the defense. You've got to have a good running game, which Pittsburgh did not have this year. Yet, they were close. They were close. So, I feel that McCarthy is going to make them a better team. I think a different voice makes all the difference in the world for that team. Now, when you look at the rest of the draft, okay, when you look at the rest of the draft order and you see exactly what is, what else is happening, look, let's just call it what it is here. You've got teams that are, you've got Vegas at 1, the first 10, nothing is really surprising there other than Kansas City and Cincinnati. Okay? The rest of those teams are normally in the top half of the draft almost every year. The Giants, the Commanders. I mean, look, let's be honest here. I think Dan Quinn's has a warm seat in Washington. And now that Kingsbury's out of there, and they're going to a more traditional NFL-style offense, I think Jaden Daniels is going to struggle. I think he is. And I think it's going to be very apparent, and it's going to be the same situation again as what we've seen in years past with Dan Quinn. Fantastic defensive coordinator. One of the best DCs in the league. As a head coach, he's great in year 1. Years 2 and 3, not so much. Whether it's bad luck, whether it's, injuries, whatever it might be, it's a problem, right? So you've got Miami at 11, you got Dallas at 12, the Rams via Atlanta at 13, Baltimore at 14, Tampa Bay at 15. Look, let's be honest here. Todd Bowles is back. He shouldn't be, but he's back. Baker Mayfield, he's another year older. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. And I agree, Fed fan, they're not good. Todd Bowles is not a good head coach. He's a good defensive coordinator, but not a good head coach. You've got the Jets at 16 again. So the Jets have 2 first-round picks currently. They got this second pick, number 16, from Indianapolis for the Sauce Gardner trade. So you got the Jets with 2 picks in the top 20. That's solid for them. They need that. You've got Detroit then at 17, Minnesota at 18. We're going to get to the Vikings here in a moment. Carolina at 19. Look, if I'm Carolina, you got to get Bryce Young help. You got to get him help. And yeah, Fed fan, I agree with you. I also think they need. I'm not sold on Aaron Glenn yet as the head coach. I'm just not. I'm just going to be honest. You've got Dallas at 20 in place of Green Bay. So Green Bay doesn't even have that first-round pick. Then you've got Pittsburgh at 10 and 7. The Chargers at 22. Philly at 23. Cleveland via Jacksonville at 24. Then Chicago at 25. Buffalo at 26. If I'm Buffalo, I'm doing everything I can. I am doing everything I can to move up. Because you either need the best wide receiver in this draft or you need one of the best defensive players in this draft because your defense is old and slow. Your defense is old and slow. Same with Chicago. Look, I'm a diehard Bears fan, as everybody knows that follows this podcast. Okay? Chicago needs edge rushers. They need linebackers. They need defensive backs. The Bears need all three levels of defense. It's going to be a defensive draft for the Bears, and it should be. But they also need a left tackle. There's no way they're going out and getting Trent Williams. If San Francisco gets rid of him, look, I would love nothing more than for the Bears to sign him, but it's not happening. The Bears need a left tackle, number one. They need edge rusher, which they could get with Max Crosby if they pull the trigger on the deal, which is a first, DJ Moore, and probably a third. You do that and you get Max Crosby, guess what? Your defensive line becomes instantaneously better. They're a much better defensive line. You need a defensive tackle. We'll get to that in a moment, too. Now, you know what? I look, Fed, you and I can agree to disagree on this, but I think Max Crosby wants to play with Caleb Williams. And I think he wants to play for Ben Johnson, and here's why. If you had all watched their podcast together, it was nothing more than a love fest. And because they're cut from the same cloth. And then the fact that Max was in Chicago with Caleb, and they have such a quick kinship already. If the Bears are able to pull the trigger, I think they're going to. So I think that's an opportunity. Devontae, I think you're spot on. I think the Bears are gonna try to get a few picks. One pick for Tyson Bagent probably. I think you might look at them trading Tremaine Edmonds. Apparently, according to multiple reports, there is lots of interest regarding Tremaine Edmonds from the Titans, the Giants, and the Raiders. So, there's an I mean, look, you may have to give up DJ Moore and Tremaine Edmonds, and then maybe a second-round pick next year. But, I mean, look, if that's what you have to do, then that's what you have to do. But, again, I feel like for this team, for the Bears, they need every single level on the defensive side. And look, the way the defensive backs and the linebackers showed out at the combine, I will say this much: I was more hopeful for the Bears with linebacker and defensive back than I've been in a number of years, because I saw a number of guys that could be there at 25 for the defensive line side of things if the Bears have that pick. I also saw guys in the second round that, because this draft is so defensive heavy, that you could absolutely have a multitude of good players that would start from you that could start for you in the second round. So for the Bears, they've got to get under the cap. That's the first thing, Monty. Good to see you. They've got to get under the cap. Getting rid of DJ Moore, getting rid of Tremaine Edmonds, restructuring some deals, that's all going to happen. All going to happen. I think you're going to see them extend Cole Kmet for a couple more years. I think you're going to see them get rid of Tyson Bagent. I think they're going to get an extension done or redo some of the contracts that they currently have. I'll tell you a guy that I would look at them trying to get rid of, and I hope they do, just for simply cap purposes, and that's Montez Sweat. That contract is not friendly. And if they can somehow restructure it and give him more of a signing bonus and lessen the cap hit, okay then you can do that. But if they're able to do that, that would be good. That would be good. The Bears currently, I think, are over the cap by, $6 million or maybe $8 million. which isn't bad. If they can trim some of the fat, they can restructure some deals, and things will be fine at that point. But again, they've got to be able to do that. You've got to have a dance partner. So with Tremaine Edmonds, I feel like they have a opportunity to get out of that contract, which would be the best for both worlds. If they could find a trade partner, if they could find it, only if you let me lead. If they find a trade partner, I feel like they would have the opportunity then to get out from that contract, restructure Jalen Johnson, restructure Montez Sweat, sign Cole Kmet to an extension. So, ultimately, they've got to find somebody that they're willing to partner up with here. Again, I think Vegas makes sense for DJ Moore. Running back to me is an interesting area, though, too. And here's why. You've got a free agent in Kenneth Walker III. Seattle's not going to have enough cap space to sign him, along with JSN and their strong safety. His name is blanking on here. Fletcher, I think is his name, maybe. Anyway, the Bears could use a new running back. If they cut DeAndre Swift, if they trade him, whatever. They've got Monangai, which is great, and they'll utilize him like they did this year. They already know what they have in him. The Minnesota Vikings, though, have let it be known that they're open for business, including for J.J. McCarthy. And that's something I want to talk about, and that's something I want to get to here. Because the Vikings today, let it be known, and this is per Adam Schefter from ESPN earlier on today, that there's a lot of talk right now about at the Combine, and this is from Rotowald Football with NBC Sports, of Derek Carr, former New Orleans Saints quarterback, to the Vikings. Lots of talk with that. There's also a lot of talk, and this comes from Adam Schefter. Javon Hargrave, the defensive tackle that Minnesota signed last year in free agency, and Aaron Jones will, if they can't find a trade partner for either one of those guys, they will get released when the league year starts. Others to watch as part of the cap situation: Jonathan Allen, Ryan Kelly. Aaron Jones with the Vikings would be a very difficult sell because of how much he means to the locker room. And Minnesota will save nearly $11 million in cap space with the move. Hargrave appeared in 16 games, had 52 tackles, 3.5 sacks in 1 year with Minnesota. Look, that was a big move for them a year ago to get him. And now to release him because of the cap hit that you would take by keeping him, that's a name to watch in Chicago. That could be a guy that might want to stay in the division and have an impact. On top of that, another running back wants out of his situation, and that's David Montgomery in Detroit. And I don't know if Montgomery, realistically, is going to get a deal that he wants. I could see him being in a tandem running back situation like he is now in Detroit, but I don't believe he's a starting running back anymore. I don't believe he's the best option in a running game. Per Jeremy Fowler at ESPN, Detroit's open to moving him. Montgomery's role in Detroit was more reduced because of Jahmyr Gibbs. And again, if Detroit wants to move on from him and they can get a 5th-round pick or a 4th-round pick for him, they'd be foolish not to do that. They would absolutely be foolish not to do it. And I think they will. What shocks me more is that the Vikings would be moving on from Aaron Jones. Because he is a veteran leader that, quite honestly, would help J.J. McCarthy quite a bit if McCarthy's going to stay there. If McCarthy's not going to stay there, then there's no point. Then there's absolutely no point. And I believe Minnesota wants out of the J.J. McCarthy business. That's why they're looking at Derek Carr. Hey, Lane, how are you? That's why they're looking at Derek Carr. I think anybody that goes to Minnesota, whether it's Kyler Murray, whether it's Tua, whether it's Derek Carr, they're going to be better off because of how good of a coach Kevin O'Connell is. The problem that Minnesota may have is that in order to get out of their cap hell, they've got to release some big-time veteran players and go super young. And if they go super young, you're effectively rebuilding, and I don't know how much the Wilf family wants to do that. And the fact that they've moved on from their general manager after 3 or 4 years, have a great night. Have a great night, Fed fan. Thanks as always, man. The fact that they've moved on from their general manager who brought in Kevin O'Connell, that makes me wonder if Kevin O'Connell is a lame duck coach. I don't think he is, but I've been wrong before. And I'm just saying that Minnesota might be bad for a couple years now, especially if they don't find somebody to get rid of or to take off McCarthy off their hands. I think it's safe to say J.J. McCarthy has been a very big disappointment in Minnesota from the jump. And the fact that he's missed more games than he's played in is a problem. And that's why I think Minnesota wants to move on. I don't know necessarily, Devontae, if Dan Campbell's on the hot seat there. I think it's more. I think personally, Dan Campbell needs to go back to being the CEO type head coach and not stick his nose on the offensive side, not stick his nose on the defensive side. Just be the leader that you can be. Trust your coordinators. And if your coordinators aren't good enough, that's on you. Then that's where I think he's on the hot seat. Monty, I agree with you wholeheartedly. O'Connell will get hired within the first hour, half hour even, of being a free agent coach, if you will. O'Connell's just that good. I think he would be at the top of everybody's list. With the exception of maybe, Vrabel in New England, so on and so forth. Bruce, how good is Malik Willis based on a couple spot start? I'll be honest, Bruce. The amount of money that they're talking about for Malik Willis, they're saying he could command $20 to $30 million a year. I think that's outrageous. I mean, we saw what he did in Tennessee, and it wasn't good. And then he goes with LaFleur and is with LaFleur in Green Bay and realistically runs the offense better than Jordan Love does. I don't think he's that good of a quarterback. I don't believe he's that good. And I think if he goes outside of Matt LaFleur, I think he goes back to being just bad Malik Willis. I think if he goes somewhere where they have a good offensive structure, like a Las Vegas with Clint Kubiak or St. Louis, or not St. Louis, God, I keep doing that, L.A. with the Rams, or even L.A. with the Chargers. I feel that would be a better fit for him versus him going to Miami, him going to Arizona. It's not going to end well there. It's just not. He's not that good of a quarterback. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll sit here and tell you that. But I don't think I'm wrong. I think I've got a pretty good eye for quarterback play. And yes, he can run, but in the same point in time, you can't just have a good running back or a good backup quarterback. You've got to have a quarterback that can absolutely throw the ball. Mandy's Treats, I saw you joined. I want to talk to you about a trade. Hit me up, please. I've got a really bad sweet tooth. And yeah, he's a good backup. There's nothing wrong with that. But if he feels like he can start Reagan, and the Packers feel like he can start, guess what? They're not going to stop him. They're not going to be able to pay him. If he has the choice of staying in Green Bay as a backup, or if he has the chance to go start somewhere, he's going to go start. He's going to go start because he feels, and rightfully so, he's the man. Right? So that's the same thing with the Bears with Tyson Bagent. Look, Ben Johnson has spoke glowingly about Tyson Bagent and how he really likes Tyson Bagent and doesn't want to lose Tyson Bagent. But guess what? If the Arizona Cardinals offer you a third-round pick, you're taking it. You'd be dumb not to. You can find another Tyson Bagent. Is Jacoby Brissett a bona fide starter? I think we know the answer to that, Bruce, and it's no. I think Brissett is good to come in and give you a spot start here and there, but he's not a bona fide starter. He's not that good. He's not that consistent. That's why I feel like if somebody's willing to give a third or fourth round pick for Tyson Bagent from the Bears, as much as I love Bagent, bye. See you later, dude. Same with Jacoby Brissett. He's not a bona fide starter. I don't believe Tyson Bagent is a bona fide starter. I could be wrong, but I don't think he is. Next Jets quarterback, look, I'm torn on that one, JPD. I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. I've heard Kyler Murray. I've heard other names associated with it. J.J. McCarthy. I've heard everything from McCarthy to Kyler Murray. I've heard Tua Tagovailoa. I can't tell you who it's going to be, but I know it's not Justin Fields. I know it's not going to be anybody big like Kirk Cousins. Could it be, honestly, if it were me, I would look at Kyler Murray. I think it would be a mistake, to be honest with you, JPD, because he's not. I don't know if he would be able to survive the media market that New York is. I just don't feel like he would be able to. And yeah, Devontae, you're right. You have a number of starters or backups that want to be starters, and I get that. I absolutely get that. There's no doubt about it. And Brissett would make sense, absolutely. But you know what? He would get eaten alive in New York. He would get eaten alive in New York. You could have Cleveland trade somebody. You could have, but Reagan, the problem is with Kyler Murray, nobody's questioning his talent. They're questioning his work ethic. They're questioning the work ethic. The Jets should sign Mariota and get your quarterback next year. That, that's a possibility. There's no question. But who are you going to gun for? Who are you going to go for? Arch Manning? I don't know if Arch is in the same category as his uncles. I might be wrong. He needs to have a huge year this year to change that narrative. But I don't know if he's going to be as good as what people want him to be. So, look, for the Jets, I think Kyler Murray makes sense. I think J.J. McCarthy makes sense. There's a number of different guys that I think it could be. I mean, Tyson Bagent could be in New York. I mean, I don't know. But again, you're going to have to, with how bad this year's draft class is, I mean, free agency is going to be your best bet unless you're willing to give up a huge chunk, whether it's draft capital, whether it's good players, to get a bona fide starter. And I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I think if Minnesota had the option to get rid of J.J. McCarthy and could get a 5th-round pick for him, I think they'd take it. I think they would absolutely take it. I don't know necessarily if they want to hang on to him. I don't think they do. You could look at anybody that's been with Kyle Shanahan. You could look at anybody. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, I've heard Arizona's interested in him. I think he would be serviceable in New York. But again, I mean, you're talking a guy that had his chance to start and didn't really live up to expectations. Couldn't stay healthy. So, I think there's a number of guys that, Geno Smith, there's no way he's going to the Jets. Been there, done that. Skylar Thompson could be good, given a chance. Yeah, I mean, maybe. But, I mean, you're not going to have guys that, I mean, realistically, let's be honest here. You're not going to have a megastar at quarterback for the Jets. You're just not. I don't think there's anybody there. All right, we're going to take a quick timeout. We're going to hear from our friends over at I Know a Guy Remodeling, and then we'll come back and continue more talk here on the Last Row Podcast. It's now March. Brackets are everywhere. Upsets, Cinderella runs. Everybody thinks they've built the perfect lineup. But let me ask you something. If your house had a bracket, would your kitchen even make it past the first round? Is your bathroom a 16 seed hanging by a thread? Listen, championships aren't built on hope. They're built on strong foundations. And when it's time to upgrade your starting 5, new cabinets, new tile, finished basements, you don't draw up the play yourself. You call in the experts. I Know a Guy Remodeling. No busted brackets, no blown leads, just clutch performance when it matters most. This spring, build a contender. Because in this house, we don't rebuild to compete. We rebuild to win. You can check out a link to their Facebook page on our website, www.lastrowpodcast.com, because everybody deserves to know a guy. And now you do. I Know a Guy Remodeling. All right, welcome back. Okay, draft talk continuing here, and combine talk continuing here. All right. Let's talk here a little bit about what else we're seeing and hearing after the draft or after the combine, excuse me. And there's a few things here. I feel like, look, there are some guys that could absolutely be top 5 picks or top 10 picks, just based on what we've seen here this weekend with the combine. And look, one name we've talked about already is Jeremiah Love. Another name we haven't talked about yet has been Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State, who absolutely was phenomenal in the draft, in the combine. I'll tell you a few other names that I'm interested in. Safety out of Oregon, Dylan Thieneman. I think he had a great combine. Ty Simpson, according to a few mock drafts that I've seen, Ty Simpson could end up in the Jets with the Jets. And I don't think that's a bad fit. I don't think that's a bad fit for him. But again, there are some guys that are projected to go, higher up, and there are some guys that realistically, there are some guys realistically that are I think going to fall towards day 2, and when that happens, you may see some teams move up because you may see some teams make some bigger moves to try to get up into the second round. Yeah, I mean Murph. Yeah, with Thieneman. Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. I believe again that we have the opportunity to. There's a number of different players that I think could fall into round 2 that would be just as big and would immediately make an impact like Cooper DeJean did. So there's that. All right. Couple of other things here. Yesterday with college basketball, I will just say this much. I was very, very disheartened by what I saw yesterday. And it was because you had multiple big games that were absolute garbage. I mean, just garbage. You had an upset today with Ohio State over Purdue. You had Michigan State over Indiana. But look, yesterday, you had Duke dominate Virginia. You had Arizona dominate Kansas. Texas Tech with the upset over Iowa State. You had Houston over Colorado. The best game of the day, I'll just be honest with you, best game of the day was UConn and Seton Hall. And I said Seton Hall was going to give them a run. You had St. Mary's over Gonzaga, St. John's over Villanova, Alabama over Tennessee, North Carolina in a close game against Virginia Tech, West Virginia over BYU. Look, overall, yesterday I was thoroughly disappointed in the quality of play. And within that quality of play, you had teams like Kansas. You had teams like Duke. Kansas just was flat. I mean, it was the same thing with Illinois Friday night against Michigan. Illinois played like garbage, and Brad Underwood let it be known. He said, look, they took their belt off and they whipped us with it. And he was right. He was absolutely right. Illinois got the pants beat off of them by Michigan. Duke did the same thing to Virginia. Arizona dominated Kansas. I mean, I don't know if I've seen a Bill Self team, for lack of a better term, get manhandled like that. I mean, that was big. St. John's, Monty, I agree with you. St. John's sent a message that, look, we're coming. We're coming. UConn, get ready. Get ready. And yeah, Monty, I know Illinois has a net rating of 5. I get that. But they played like garbage Friday night. I mean, that was bad. And then you see all of these other teams, Kansas, Iowa State. Florida beat the living crap out of Arkansas. I mean, that wasn't even close. So I feel like you've got going into championship week here, there are a lot of question marks about where teams are going to go and where they're going to be ranked. And I think for some teams, you've got to have really good tournaments in order to improve where you may end up. And a week from now, when it's Selection Sunday, because I believe That's next Sunday, I believe. Um, Look, I think that's going to be. I mean, you're going to have a lot of teams that I think are going to get seeded really, really low, and when that happens, I mean, look, let's be honest here. You, you're going to have a number of different. You're going to have a number of different teams that are going. Okay, Selection Sunday is 3:15. Thank you, Monty. You're going to have a number of teams that are so misseeded that, as good of a year as they may have had in the Big Ten or the Big 12 or the ACC or Big East or whatever, they may not make it out of the round of 64. They may not. So I was very disappointed in the level of play. And Fighting Illini coach Brad Underwood said it best. He said, "Look, he goes, we got to get better. This is March. We got to get better." And he's right. They got to get better if they want to have any shot. So there's that. You got the World Baseball Classic starting this week. I wish I could say I were more vested in it. I'm a little concerned because you have big name players in the U.S. and around the world, but big name players in the U.S. that, 4 years ago when they had the World Baseball Classic, there were quite a number of injuries afterwards. And teams, not having their star players or their star pitchers. And you have these guys going through spring training right now, not even midway through spring training, and they are they're thrust right into big time game play. And for these players, whether it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for the Dominican Republic, whether it's Kyle Schwarber for the U.S., whoever, any pitchers, Shohei Ohtani for Japan, Tarek Skubal for the U.S. Look, some of these guys are only going to pitch one time, and then they're done. And I don't think that's right. And we've talked about that before, but I also think that maybe that's a decision made by the team and or the player because they know that they're, where they're going to get their money is in the regular season with their regular team. So I'm wondering if the validity or not validity. Let me rephrase that. I wonder if it would be better or better practice for the World Baseball Classic to not necessarily have major league players and have, minor league players or college player, whatever it might be. I don't know. Just a thought. Monty says a lot of these teams are too reliant on the three. Absolutely. Monty, I agree with you wholeheartedly. They don't know how to make the extra pass inside. They don't know how to, solve a defense. They're too busy focusing in on where they're going to jack the next three up from. And that's a problem. All right. One other thing here I want to talk about. And talked about it on Friday night a little bit. And want to just touch on it here very briefly. And we said on Friday night that maybe by Sunday we were doing something in Iran. And I'm not going to get political, so hear me when I say that. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, left, right, in between, doesn't matter to me. I don't care if you're red, green, blue, yellow, orange, whatever. Just want to say this, and I posted it yesterday as a thought to our to the folks on TikTok prior to me stating that we wouldn't have a podcast last night, and that simply is this: at the end of the day, if you are here in America, we are all Americans, and again, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Doesn't matter to me. But in my opinion, and this is just me from the last row, okay, we need to support our troops and pray for them and get them home safely. I know that we had a number of servicemen and women killed in this Operation Epic Fury that started on Saturday morning. I would just say this. Whether you agree with it, whether you don't, I don't care. At the end of the day, we're Americans. If you're here in the U.S. And I pray for our troops. I pray for our troops because what they have to do and what they are going through currently, and what we rely on them to do, I think sometimes we take for granted. And so as you hear the news stories, as you watch the coverage, I will just say this much. I'm a news nerd. I went to college for broadcast journalism. You know, I've been locked in since 5 a.m. Saturday morning with coverage on. So it's just me. That's just me. Sports are a nice distraction, especially when you have, major attacks going on and major attacks here in America happening. So I just want to simply say this. Be careful. Know your surroundings. Know where you are. And just let's keep in mind the men and women that are serving and that are protecting us and protecting our freedom so that we can be free. So, all right. That's going to put a bow on this edition of the Last Row Podcast. I want to thank you so much for listening and for being around and being a part of this. If you are on TikTok Live, stick around for the overtime. If you're on YouTube Live, get on over to TikTok Live. So that way we can continue the conversation. We will be back with you tomorrow night, unless anything changes, but I'm planning on being here tomorrow night and look forward to that. And of course, breaking news changes everything. And we will be here tomorrow night to talk more NFL, to talk Major League Baseball, college basketball, NBA, and more. Big thanks to our friends over at I Know a Guy Remodeling. We appreciate their support. And until tomorrow night, I'll see you in the last row.